Friday night with our friends at Erdinger in the excellent Albert Schloss on Bold Street. They are celebrating Oktoberfest behind us. I don't know how much of it you can see, but it looks gorgeous. The place absolutely drop dead gorgeous. The Erdinger looks gorgeous as well. And with me, I've got Josh Sexton, I've got Ali Gunn, and I've got Andy Heaton to look back on a mad Liverpool week, because they're all mad Liverpool weeks, and to look ahead to what is the big one against Crystal Palace. It was mad when he got sent off, wasn't it? It genuinely is like, from nowhere, it's an oh my god Liverpool moment.
Yeah, like there was loads of that game where you sort of almost left yourself like picking the bones out of it after, rather than being able to process in the moment. There was loads of good mad and bad mad. That was the bad mad. That was like the what are you doing, you absolute doom brain mad moment. There was a couple of just mad moments, like especially in the first half. Jeremy Frimpong just couldn't keep hold of the ball. I would say that
first
probably
20 minutes was insane.
It was genuinely like wild. Like I thought he was like going to be a more composed version of Kirkes, where he's sort of like flying up and down the wing, but he always looks more in control. He looked like madder than I think Kirkes has looked at any point this season, which quite frankly takes some doing. But then loads of good mad as well. Like I always think whenever there's a bizarre game of football, Federico Chiesa somehow manages to stand up and be counted, and he's a real like human footballer, Chiesa, in the sense that he seems to just progressively grow throughout a game. It's like from minute one, he's like, I'm just going to feel my way in here. I'm going to try and get on the ball as much as possible, but it's going to take me a little bit of time. And by minute 90, or however long he stays on for, you almost find yourself like purring over him because he's worked so hard to get into the game. He's usually found himself a fulcrum. And yeah, I mean, I'm left now hoping he's involved at the weekend, given the madness of what Ekitike did.
We'll come back around on so he's going to be involved in the weekend, Ali. I think those games are difficult because you've got A, a lot of lads who haven't played football in a while. B, a lot of lads who've never played together before, or if they have, it's been 10 minutes in a pre-season game or something like that. So you are a bit frustrated at times because you know they're all a bit better than this, but they're all not quite as sharp as you'd like one way or another.
No, they're not, and you can see that with. I saw John's comment on Twitter about Wazarendo needed oiling up at half time because he was a little bit. It was clunky, and we knew it would be clunky, but I think the thing for people like Endo is they need to take that impetus because they know they're not going to get a lot of minutes in other places. You may get a bit of Wazarendo away on Saturday if we're 1-0 up and there's 5 minutes to go and he needs to leg someone, and we're all here for that. But there's a few players like Wazarendo, there's a few players like Andy Robertson that will want to take that impetus in and build momentum because, as Robertson's come out and admitted, he's not going to get a lot of game time. Kirkes seems to be the next iteration of a Liverpool left back. But if you can afford to play Andy Robertson in a team where you've got Trey Nioni on his side and a team where you've got Rio Ngamoa, it's a lovely, lovely position for us to be in. But, some players will come away, and the manager came out afterwards and said he wasn't happy with a few performances, and he was very cutting in how he sort of commented on those players. And then there was a few such as Federico Chiesa where he lauded him and thought he was brilliant. So
he's interesting to me, the manager post-match, because he decides he's putting the boot into them. It's worth remembering how much he put the boot into them after Plymouth last season, and he absolutely was ruthless then when they got beat. He was ruthless there. I thought he was really aggressive. He gave Chiesa and Robertson the free pass, but everyone else, it felt as though he demands a lot more. And I quite like it when you get that edge of him, which I think we definitely got on Tuesday night.
Yeah, it's very much not resting on your laurels kind of message to them all, really. I mean, I've got a bit of sympathy for them because I can't remember the last time we played an 11 for the first, like the 11 will never play that lineup again. I mean, even the European Cup final, I don't think we played that well when he pulled that one. And maybe they just underestimated Southampton a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, the game could go totally different. If Isak scores the first 5, then the game goes a totally different way. And we once again managed to bump into the good version of Alex McCarthy. There's 2 versions of McCarthy. Either the red McCarthy, who could score all day, or the one who throws one in against us.
I saw him walking through town early that day, and I really wish I did him, to be honest. Just 2-footed him early.
No, they could have. He made some smart saves there. I know, that doesn't excuse the performance, but the mad thing is, we get in 0-0, come out, play better second half, not great, but better. And then they managed to score, and we nearly throw it away again. Just on Chiesa, I mean, it's just a lovely story, isn't it? But so one thing I'll give him that you can't take away from him is awareness, the speed of thought, and that touch.
Yeah.
Before they put it in for Ekitike. Now, you can say, oh, it's only Southampton, it's only this, it's only that. I mean, you'll know, to have that quality and that presence of mind to do that against any team, I mean, that first touch would have done anyone.
It's the same act.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't matter who's running after him. He's running through. The ball's coming over his shoulder, and to just bring it down in one touch and then square it with the next. It is phenomenal football.
Yeah, and it made up for him, and hopefully, you know, he'll have a bigger part to play this season. It could be one of the. I always feel like Liverpool's great seasons are always underpinned by a character story somewhere. There's always a character arc somewhere, and it might well be him, especially with Ekatike doing what he did. But he's only a kid. On Ekatike, he's a kid.
Yeah.
And it's one of the. It's almost. I think he realised a split second too late. He's like at the point where it's actually not quite off his head, but his brain hasn't. He hasn't got the reaction speed to go. Oh, hang on a minute. Took it off and go. He's like. You can see it in his like. It's like getting caught by your mum doing something when you're a kid when you're not supposed to.
It's funny today, the press conference, the manager says they've not fined him. We're not that sort of football club. He's made one mistake. He's been told about one mistake. I'm pleased the manager, you know, again, the same way that the manager on Wednesday night is very no-nonsense, both with performance, with Ekatike, with the whole process. The fact that he comes out on Friday and it's, no, this isn't how we do things, this is who we are. You know, it's good that you feel like he's got both gears, is what I mean, the manager. Yeah. And this is a good example of it, I think.
He's very human. He understands that some players need a pat on the back and some players do need just that little kick when it needs to be given out. And I mean, we saw that with Chiesa last season. Now, on the subject of Federico Chiesa, I think that's some realisation in his head that it can't get any better for Federico Chiesa than being at Liverpool Football Club. And the managers, I think, told him that. So he's going to work absolutely all hours of the day to make sure he is the best version of himself for us. Whereas there are other players like Milos Kerkez, where the manager has needed to just put an arm around him, like at Burnley, and go, you know, we need to understand here that this is not for you right now. And I think, you know, the squad's good enough that even when Ekatike was sent off, apparently he came in and apologised to everyone.
Yeah.
And it's that environment that you create, and you look at that in compared to other teams that, like down the road at Man United, where that would have been a serious problem and there would have been people calling for all sorts. But I understand he's going to make mistakes. I'm glad the manager publicly supported him, and I'm also glad that the players sort of just took it on the chin and went, that's my fault. End of story. Draw a line on it. We'll move on. Saturday's new game.
On Chiesa, and I almost want to loop Dan's in a little bit to this, but start with Chiesa. You know, Ali says there, this is it in a way. But I think it's also, he knows it's what he makes of it. And I thought Dan's attitude when he came on was phenomenal. Again, sort of charging round. It speaks well of the general culture of the club, even that whilst they're not playing well and the manager is about to call them out on the one hand, on the other hand you get to see unbelievable work rate and commitments. And I think with Chiesa, you know, he couldn't be in a position where people don't want to work for him more. Everyone really wants to see him really grow, really prosper. You know, he's coming into every match with a ton of goodwill.
Yeah, and I think it sort of speaks to this. It was almost underestimated for me when people would used to say like, oh, it's a no dickheads policy. Like I think there is a degree to which it's a no dickheads policy at Liverpool. I think there's people that Liverpool have signed over the years that we've seen who we've sort of seen as dickheads. But I think the biggest issue with those players that we have seen as dickheads is they didn't buy into the work. Like you think back to like an El Hadji, for example, he didn't buy into the work that Gerard Houllier set out for him. You can even go, you know, further down the line to so many players who didn't buy into the work that it takes to be a Liverpool Football Club. And I think that's the thing that you've got that Ali says there. You've got like the ultimate buy-in for Federico Chiesa. That, you know, whether it's that he doesn't think he's going to go anywhere bigger than Liverpool, he might have thought in his head that being at Juve because he's an Italian lad was bigger than Liverpool. But I think he's understood from minute one that to be at Liverpool you have to really buy into the work, and especially under this manager, because this manager is no bullshit. Like he's not too up, he's not too down. He knows that things he says in press conferences are going to be stories, and I think so far he's used that less than the old manager. I think the old manager had, you know, a pretty clever way of either not being the story at times or being the story at times to take some heat off some other aspects of the club. Whereas this manager is not willing to do that. He comes out and criticises Ekatike in no uncertain terms on Tuesday, and you know, almost within that praises Chiesa too. By the way, he says, really you know, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but you know, if it was me, I'd have thanked Chiesa for the good ball rather than going and making a big deal of myself, which, you know, I completely agree with. But he also sees that on Friday, you know, maybe under James Milner times at Liverpool there'd have been some fines for Ekatike. I think there's a few stories that have come out about there being a strict fine system there, but the manager knows that'll be another story, and he doesn't want stories. He wants any stories happening at Liverpool to be positive ones, and that's absolutely what Federico Chiesa is at the moment.
Just on Chiesa, do you think there's an element of he's realised that if the application's there, you'll broadly be all right? I mean, I'll go back to Darwin Núñez on night. It didn't work out, but it never at any point did anyone ever turn on him.
You know,
and maybe there's that fear that...
There's that big picture with them all together at the end when he's going, and it was clear that his teammates had a lot of affection for him, Nunez.
But even like the crowd as well, they're not going to get on your back as long as they see that application and effort.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a penny drop. Chiesa goes, well, look, if all I can do is my best, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. And Slot said that himself about Nunez, by the way, at Villa away last year. Like he said, I can take you missing chances and feeling a bit sorry for yourself after, but what I won't take is you then not trying because of it.
But this no dickheads policy. I mean, people talk about like Liverpool have this and Klopp introduced it. I think that's policed more probably by the squad than the coaches and the managers.
Yeah.
There's a bar there and it's policed, and if you fall below that, the manager hasn't got a bollock yet. Because Virgil pull you.
Yeah.
And you get the sense with Virgil this season as well, he's always been a leader of Liverpool. But the way he spoke about Liverpool recently and how he carries himself, and he's almost like Henderson to Klopp's Henderson, if you will. But if you go back to that, it was Henderson and Milner who set the standard then. Yeah. Not necessarily the manager. And if you've got that within the squad, it's huge for a manager. That he hasn't got to go around. Because you talk about arm around the shoulder quite rightly. With managers, sometimes they've got to be consistent. But if you've got Virgil to do your dirty work for you, you can keep that consistency.
Yeah.
And let Virgil not the bollocks.
I think what I am really aware of recently with Chiesa, and I don't want to make this a Federico Chiesa Friday night, although I'm banging into it.
Absolutely do.
I'm banging into it.
First question
Friday night
is whether or not you pick him at Crystal Palace, so don't you worry.
Well, do you know what, to touch on that slightly, I think what I've noticed, especially in his gameplay here, is 3 years ago we were talking about a European Cup winner for Italy. We were talking about a player worth 70, 80 million pounds. Now, he had a horrendous injury and that has sort of curtailed his progress, but we're talking about a really, really good footballer here. So there is no reason to say that he cannot have a positive impact in Liverpool outside of just working hard and applying himself and being a Liverpool footballer. He has all the quality and skill to have an impact in this squad. Will we see that week in, week out? Maybe on Saturday because of the situation that's arisen.
Don't give it away, we've got to go to a break.
But we'll come on to that.
Want to build the tension?
Wow, yeah, well, I'll shut up then. All right, I'll stop talking.
It's a Friday night. We are in the fabulous Albert Schloss. We are on Bold Street, bottom of Bold Street, close to Central Station. You get the opportunity to pop in, do so. We're with our friends at Erdinger. It's brilliant to be with them as well. Something on that, back to us. You know what the first question's going to be?
And Erdinger, please.
Stop! Don't forget the best bit.
Welcome back. We are in Albert Schloss. It is Erdinger. Go on, would you start in Palace? Or would you start in Galatasaray?
I started at Galatasaray.
Where would you start and then in Galatasaray? I know it seems a bit of a leap, but I'll come back in a second.
I think he'll go for Gakpo, Isak, Salah at the weekend against Palace. I think we will see Federico Chiesa at some point.
Yep.
How long that is, I think, is very dependent on the game and how Palace sets up. I think again against Galatasaray, I think he will maybe reserve Gakpo. I don't think someone like Rio Ingamoa is ready to go to somewhere like Galatasaray away, so I think you'd rather have someone like Cody Gakpo coming off your bench and doing that. But I would be looking playing him off the left a little bit more often. I don't think centrally is quite necessary. But, you know, we've seen on Wednesday, he came in and he did a little bit in midfield for about 10 or 15 minutes. He has that in his armoury, but I just don't think we need to overload Federico Chiesa in being the Superman that he's trying to be.
I'm with you, I'll be honest, we did Friday, we did pre-match one before, and I sort of said that I don't think he'll start this one against Palace from what the manager says today in the press conference, John. But you can make a bit of an argument. Gakpo's going to have to do 90, I think.
Yeah.
I can't quite, unless there's a late sub where Rio comes on, I don't think Rio will get more than 10 minutes. So, you know, Gakpo is doing a de facto 90, realistically. But then I think you could make an argument of maybe you do give Chiesa an hour in Galatasaray. But I also think we are looking at Gakpo, Isak, Salah to start against Crystal Palace.
Yes, it's hard to disagree with that, to be honest. And the manager has, spoke about Isak maybe not being completely up to speed yet. I think with every passing game, he's looking like he is sort of, becoming more a part of the squad and figuring out where teammates are. And that's all the stuff that's going to come with time, and he's going to need time on the pitch in big games to do that. And there's no bigger game really than Crystal Palace away at the moment with how they played over the past 17 or 18 games. I know, unbelievable. Galatasaray, I don't think you need. It almost becomes like chalkboard material, doesn't it, to Federico Chiesa to the point of you start the season not in the Champions League squad, and that's a heartbreaking thing for you. It becomes
story arcs.
Well, exactly. Yeah, like it becomes a question he gets asked at seemingly every turn. Whenever you see those sort of random quotes breaking, usually in international breaks, like where's that interview and who was that journalist who asked him that? But it was the thing that Keir's got asked, and he said that he was sad about it. And then obviously now that we had the tragic injury to Leone, Keir's had the opportunity to come into the squad. So there'll be no bigger thing for him than coming on and trying to make an impact against Crystal Palace if he needs to. Hopefully we'll already be in the clear with a nice little lead by then, fingers crossed. But if not, and he comes on and has to put the work in, we know he'll put the work in. And then God will he relish that game in Turkey on the Tuesday after. It'll be absolutely fizzing to go in there.
It's one where the manager's got selection headaches everywhere, Andy, but the good headaches, I'd argue, in that he's got choices. What does he want to do in midfield? What does he want to do at right back? What does he want to do at left back? I suspect the goalkeeper, the two centre-backs, nailed on. Gravenberch obviously nailed on. But couldn't tell you now where Szoboszlai plays. Will he play adjacent to Gravenberch? Will he play the front of the midfield? I don't think so, but maybe it's possible. Will he play right back? What do you think the manager's going to try and work out in this game against Crystal Palace?
Well, I think what we've seen with Arne Slot so far, you are right, there's a nice problem to have. He'll weigh up the pros and cons of what they think Palace will do.
Yeah.
And then make the mind up off the back of that. I think we've already seen this with the Kerkez-Robertson thing. They pick to suit whatever what the opposition are and who they get, who's going to get more out of. So, for instance, against Palace, I wouldn't play Frimpong.
You wouldn't? I
put Bradley in there, just a little bit stronger. Frimpong's still bedding in a little bit. I think it's a massive opportunity for Florian Wirtz to get some minutes in his belt, and then that leads to the Keir question again. What a nice option to have on 70 if you haven't scored. I think Gakpo should start. I'd start Gakpo only because I think he needs a good performance and a goal.
So, but would you start McAllister?
No.
So you go Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, Wirtz.
Yes, I would. Yeah. I think McAllister's not off it, but he's not been up to his normal standard the last couple of weeks. I mean, God love him, he's just had the baby as well. Welcome to hell, mate. So, no, I'll go with that. And then you've got, again, if you don't start McAllister, another one on the bench you can bring on. Yeah, I'm looking forward. It's going to be a tough game, but exciting.
Where are you playing Szoboszlai? Because I think I ask you that, and then it unlocks me asking you another three
Who plays
questions.
off the left for Palace, by the way? Now that Ezra's not there.
So they could use Pino or Kamada in this one. Pino's had an injury and is coming back. Kamada's been his more sort of reliable pick. He's his long-term tactical mate. Okay. Sarr should be fit. He said he's fit today, so Sarr
off the right,
starts off the right. So what would you do?
I would play Gravenberch and Szoboszlai only as a two, and then have Wirtz in front, because they play with Wharton, and usually in these games he likes Will Hughes. He likes a combative midfielder that's going to start throwing his weight around, and I think if we can just get some legs in there to run them around, because they're so well drilled, Palace, they're so well set up, and if you can have Wirtz buzzing around in behind, and you can have Szoboszlai just running channels or pulling Will Hughes out.
The physicality, the other two frees Wirtz up to.
Yeah. And that's where I would go fire with fire there, and I'd go up.
You go Bradley.
Yeah, I'd go Bradley.
And would you go Kerkez?
No. See, I've always maintained, I like Milos Kerkez a lot. I think there is a little bit of Alberto Moreno in him at the minute, where he's a little bit erratic, and we don't quite know what version of Milos Kerkez we're going to get. I would prefer, if they're going to play Ismail Assar, to put Andy Robertson on the left, and we just keep things a little bit safe and secure. Now, that's not a popular answer to some people.
No, it's not to me, Ali, I'll be honest.
But I just think I would rather have the defensive solidity, knowing that we have the firepower up front, than potentially have the marauding left back in Milos Kerkez.
Well, they can do that midweek.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's a pace thing for me. Like, Kerkez has dealt well with lads with pace so far. I think probably the only one he had any real problems with, and they weren't real problems, was Madueke at Arsenal. Like, otherwise, the lads who have pace, he's dealt with really well.
But he did play against Ismail Assar in the Community Shield.
And he wasn't bad, was he? I don't think on the whole. I wouldn't have said so.
I thought we got battered down our left. Just one man's view.
I was very much on the right hand side of the Community Shield and drunk, so you can forgive me of that. I think I'd still do Kerkez. I've seen Robertson get legged in the past 6 months by way too many wingers.
But also, I'm not even more about that. I'm more that I think that Robertson's exactly what you want to go and take into Galatasaray.
Yeah.
Where you're going to want to be purely full of sense.
Yeah.
For
Quiet
60
crowd,
minutes.
I'm the absolute opposite on that.
Go on, you want Kerkez for
Galatasaray, yeah.
and Robertson for this one?
Fire with fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can imagine Kirk's putting a flag in the centre circle.
I can imagine Robertson doing that as well.
I just think with Palace, our record there recently has been phenomenal. I don't think we've lost since 2014 there. And they've still got some, the squad's changed, but we've still got elements of the squad that's been there so many times. Muscle memory there. Andy Robertson knows what it's like to play at Selhurst Park for Liverpool, knows the drill, knows what he's doing. Conor Bradley's strong as well. You know, alright, he's relatively big, but he gives you that physicality. I think it's a game on Saturday, you know, it is very much battle first, war later. And then it does give you the beautiful option midweek of letting them have a little bit of fun. Because we were talking in the office before, I expect Liverpool to win in Turkey, but it's not the end of the world if they don't. And they can play with that little bit of freedom. And then, you know, if Wales plays himself into form, play him in the 2 games. If not, or he wants to have a rest, you've then got a fresh Chiesa there. So you ask me what lineup, I think what he does on Saturday will dictate midweek. And it might even dictate his lineup. That might go into his thinking when he's picking his 11.
So where would you place Sebastian?
Right back for me. I've really liked Conor Bradley as a sub this season. I think every time he comes on, he brings something so different. I think it's when you see his real pace come through. I wasn't enthused by Jeremy Frimpong against Southampton, and it's not to say like I'd almost punish him with this. It's more that I would like him to play a little bit further forward and come off the bench against tired legs, like we saw against Burnley, where he wins the penalty in that game. Like I can imagine a scenario, and I'm sure Slot can as well, where you're 0-0 with Palace on 85, and you just need something a little bit different to tire their left back out, or maybe Salah's not really managed to get himself into the game, and the Bradley and Frimpong thing has worked really well. So
but it worked didn't it, with the penalty?
I do Szoboszlai right back, McAllister and Gravenberch in the centre, which I still think, you know, deals with what Ali was saying in terms of that physical battle. McAllister is, to me, one of the best midfielders at taking contact in the Premier League. He's so in the wars, but he wins so many fouls. So I think that'll be good against someone like Will Hughes.
So I like the way they play, because the way they do the 2 lads who are narrow, with Sarr able to explode to the right, the lad who plays the other side, it has been Eze, whoever it is, tends to play more as an attacking midfielder. So the idea that Szoboszlai comes in for that part, I think works quite nicely.
That was partly why I asked you who was their left winger before. So, if it was someone like Sarr, for example, and maybe look at Bradley.
But it's a bit different,
But it's a bit different.
But what would appeal to me genuinely, because a lot of it depends on where you think McAllister is physically. I wouldn't be averse to starting Jones.
Oh, do you know, I was going to say, would you start Curtis Jones?
I think if you were to do that with Szoboszlai, I think there's a really strong argument to start Curtis. Because I think he's very good at just looking after the ball. This is going to be that sort of game where you like soak up Will Hughes' fouls. And I mean that with an enormous amount of love and respect. He's been brilliant last 18 months, Will Hughes, but that's what he does. He gets amongst you, he makes it deeply unpleasant, but someone to soak that stuff up could work quite nicely. And then you can introduce McAllister as a positive substitution and not have a substitution where you're taking him off on 60 because you're a bit like, oh God, he's not quite got to the pace of where we want. I wonder about that, whether or not that could work. But the point about this is that as we've all illustrated the manager's options, they're all good options, they're all good. And the other thing about this, Josh, on them is the 17 unbeaten. We've played them in that run twice. Both have been draws whilst that run's gone on. They've played, I'm not going to say the same, because the manager has a really clear structure, but he tweaks what he wants. So let's not act as though it's obvious. But there's no excuses for Liverpool in a way. The Palace are not going to surprise them tactically. They're not going to surprise Arne Slot tactically. You know, there'll be little tweaks around the edges, but Liverpool know exactly what to expect in terms of their structure, in terms of their quality, in terms of their personnel.
Liverpool are the quality of team where you should never go into any game really worrying too much about what the opposition is going to do, especially for us as fans. I understand why Arne Slot and the players would maybe do that in sort of analysis meetings.
What would it be in their job?
But more so what I mean by that is, because it sounds like quite a sort of black and white thing to say, but Liverpool is so good at football that you can kill other teams with football, with your own football. As long as you're on your game on any day, and I truly believe this about Liverpool. Liverpool can beat anybody in world football. So if Liverpool turn up to Crystal Palace and you told me Liverpool turned up and won 3-0, I would absolutely not be surprised by the outcome. I would, it probably won't happen tomorrow. Is the reality of it? I would imagine it'll be a closer game than that. But Liverpool are more than good enough to do that. They're more than good enough to turn up to a team who probably should give them a better game and absolutely steamroll them, because that's how good Liverpool are at football. And you mentioned about the sort of variety of options. It's variety in skill sets as well. This is what I love about this Liverpool team, is that if it was Jones rather than McAllister, you think you're getting something so different. If it was McAllister over Jones, you think you're getting something so different. Any of those 3 right back options, you're getting something so different. Exactly, and with Palace, it always feels like they'll bring on different lads for sort of like fresher legs, but you're getting roughly the same job in those positions. That's where I think Glasner sort of earns his money, really, is how good he is at just dragging that out of them. Like, I was so impressed by Munoz in the Community Shield. Wasn't particularly impressed by him at Anfield. So the sort of difference he makes in those two games, because Glasner decides that's when he wants him to come into the game. That's why I think Liverpool struggled on that right-hand side a little bit more in the Community Shield, was because of how good Munoz was behind Sarr and allowed Sarr to sort of have the freedom then. So
the envelopes.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm expecting it to be a tough game for Liverpool, but as I say, Liverpool can win any game on the day.
Do you think the fact that we appreciate that it's going to be a tough game might actually favour Liverpool a little bit?
Yeah.
I always, the likes of the Burnley game, when games are expected to win, I always find sometimes that Liverpool make it harder than what they need to be. I mean, Everton, for example, as well. I mean, I can't not mention Everton, can I? I think some periods last season, some of the best performances is when we were expecting a really tough game, and that's when Liverpool showed discipline and control and wore teams down and ended up.
This is a really strong panel with Bournemouth away, and I feel with teams like Palace and Bournemouth, when I see the discourse from, and you've got to be careful because what I'm referring to here, a lot of it's online, but a lot of it's online from smart people. Like, I've seen people try to act as the Liverpool start hasn't been difficult, and one of my things within that is we really rate Bournemouth. We beat Bournemouth a lot, but I think part of why we beat Bournemouth a lot is the club as a whole, the manager, every player, and then it emanates then to the fans. Really respect what the challenge is, and I think with Palace, this really reminds me of that Bournemouth away game last season, where you were going into it like, it was a 3 p.m. on a Saturday as well, and you were going into it like, we are going to be worked and worked and worked here. And I think that the respect we've got for Palace, even though of the last 10 we've won 9 and drawn 1, our respect for them collectively is up there. And I think that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
I think it's a great thing. I mean, do you know what? My respect for Palace, because Palace are not shy about, they will come in with a plan, but it's an obvious plan. They're not trying to hide this plan like they did in the Community Shield. Get down the right-hand side, utilise Munoz, hit Sarr, use Mateta to hold it up. 3 key aspects of their game, and they weren't shy about using it. And actually, I think that benefits Liverpool going, right, go and stop them. Go and stop them, like you did with Bournemouth on the first game of the season, and last year, they're going to try and use Semenyo. They're going to use these players, and they have to set out plans. And that's what I respect Glasner and Palace, because there's no frills. This is how we know we can win football matches. Okay, as a Liverpool fan, as Liverpool players, as a Liverpool manager, you know what's going to come. Go and sort it. Go and fix it. As you said, Josh, go and play your football, but respect what they're going to come up and do, and what they're going to try and we're going to see a lot of Will Hughes, and Will Hughes is going to be putting a lot of himself around that pitch, but go and stop him. Go and nullify all of their threats, and then get on the ball and play football. And do you know what? I'm excited by it, because it's another challenge, and it's another challenge where on Sunday we can sit here and go, yeah, well, no, we were sound, we were boss, we were great. And it's also another challenge on social media when people go, well, it was an easy game for Liverpool again, wasn't it? You know, it wasn't that hard, because it was only Palace away.
Thank you very much to Ali, to Andy, to Josh. Thank you very much indeed to Albert Schloss on Bold Street. A pleasure to be here. To our friends at Erdinger on Saturday at 3 p.m, the irresistible force meets the immovable object. Liverpool 6 out of 6, them 17 unbeaten. But I want to be clear, we're the irresistible force.